There's a reason you've been feeling the pressure. There's a reason it seems like every time you start to rise, something comes along to push you down again. There's a reason the storms seem to follow you, even when you're doing everything right, even when you're praying, fasting, serving, and walking in faith. It's not because you're weak. It's not because you're forgotten. It's because you're chosen. The enemy doesn't waste his time attacking those who pose no threat. He doesn't chase after people who are already walking in his direction. He targets the ones who carry something holy, something divine, something that has the power to shake his kingdom. You, my friend, are not under attack because you're worthless. You're under attack because you're valuable. You're not being targeted because you're empty. You're being targeted because you're full of purpose. And the enemy knows it. He can see the hand of God resting upon your life even when you can't. He can sense that there's a calling, a light, a fire in your spirit that will change lives, break chains, and bring others to freedom. That's why he's been after your mind, your peace, your joy, your relationships, your confidence, and your future. He knows that if he can't stop your calling, he'll try to distract your heart. But hear me, the attacks are not a sign of your defeat. They are evidence of your destiny. The greater the calling, the greater the conflict. The higher the purpose, the hotter the fire. The deeper the anointing, the darker the opposition. Every time you feel that weight pressing down on you, it's a reminder that heaven has marked you. You are not ordinary. You are not forgotten. You are not a mistake in the plan of God. You are chosen. When God chooses someone, it changes everything. It doesn't mean life becomes easier. It means life becomes spiritual warfare. The moment you say yes to God's will, you draw a line in the sand, and the enemy recognizes you as a threat to his territory. He remembers what you were before you met God. He knows what you used to struggle with, how you used to live, how far you've come. So he whispers lies like, you're not really changed, you'll never be good enough, you're not called, you're not anointed, you're not ready. But those are lies straight from the pit of hell. If the devil can't destroy your destiny, he'll try to destroy your belief in it. He wants you to doubt what God said about you. He wants you to question your worth, your progress, your forgiveness. But let me tell you something. What God has spoken over your life cannot be canceled by hell. You were chosen before you were born. You were anointed before you made those mistakes. You were called before you even knew his name. That's why the attacks feel personal, because they are. The enemy is not after your car, your house, or your bank account. He's after your faith. He knows that if he can kill your faith, he can silence your future. But you must rise up and say, not today, Satan. You can attack, but you will not prevail. You can roar, but you will not rule. You can strike, but you will not steal my destiny. There's something the enemy always forgets. Every attack he throws at a child of God becomes fuel for their victory. What was meant to destroy you, God will use to develop you. The tears you've cried, the nights you've spent on your knees, the loneliness you've endured, they're not wasted. Every trial is building spiritual muscle. Every storm is teaching you to trust deeper. Every betrayal is pushing you closer to your purpose. The enemy doesn't realize that by attacking you, he's actually helping God reveal what's inside you. Because pressure doesn't create weakness. It reveals strength. When you're chosen, you'll often walk a lonely road. Not everyone will understand your journey. Some people will question your faith, misunderstand your heart, and even walk away from you. But don't mistake isolation for abandonment. Sometimes God separates you not to punish you, but to prepare you. He pulls you away from the noise so you can hear his voice more clearly. He hides you in the wilderness so he can refine your spirit. He allows you to feel the fire so that your faith can become unshakable. You see, when you're chosen, you can't live like everyone else. You can't do what everyone else does. You can't settle for what everyone else settles for. You have a divine assignment, and with that assignment comes divine resistance. Look back at every person God ever used mightily. They were attacked, rejected, and tested. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, but he was chosen to save a nation. David was hunted by a jealous king, but he was chosen to become one. Daniel was thrown into a den of lions, but he was chosen to display God's power. The pattern has not changed. The chosen are always tested before they're trusted. Maybe right now you're in your own lion's den. Maybe you're walking through a fire that feels like it's too hot to bear. Maybe you've been praying, Lord, why is this happening to me? I'm trying to do right, but everything's going wrong. But the fire you're in isn't meant to burn you. It's meant to reveal that God is with you. The very presence of opposition is proof that you're on the right path. The fact that the devil keeps coming after you is proof that you're carrying something he's afraid of. If he's attacking your mind, it's because he knows your thoughts are powerful. If he's attacking your peace, it's because he knows your calm is dangerous. If he's attacking your confidence, it's because he knows your boldness shakes the ground of hell itself. Don't believe the lie that you're losing. You're not losing. You're learning. You're not breaking down. You're breaking through. The chosen ones always go through seasons that look like defeat, but those are just divine setups for victory. God is not punishing you. He's positioning you. You may feel buried, but you're not buried. You're planted. And when something is planted, it's meant to grow. There's growth happening underground right now, growth you can't yet see. Every tear you've cried is watering a seed of destiny. Every prayer you've whispered is being heard in heaven. Every time you refuse to give up, you've told hell you picked the wrong one. Because the chosen can't quit. The chosen can't stay down. The chosen can't be defeated. When you're chosen, God's hand covers you. His favor follows you. His grace surrounds you. And even when you stumble, he lifts you up. Even when you fall, he reminds you that your story isn't over. You see, the devil's greatest mistake was coming after you, because now, through your struggle, others will see God's glory. They'll see your resilience and realize that if God can carry you, he can carry them too. That's why your pain has purpose. That's why your wounds will become your weapons. That's why your scars will tell a story of grace and endurance. Because chosen ones don't just survive, they shine. They shine. The attacks may come, but they can't erase what heaven has decreed. The devil may roar, but he can't rewrite your name from God's book. The world may doubt you, but God calls you his own. The enemy has been trying to silence you, but God is saying, stand up, child. Speak again. Worship again. Believe again. Because every time you lift your voice in praise, while you're still in pain, you're declaring war on darkness. Every time you smile through sorrow, you're reminding the enemy that joy comes in the morning. Every time you keep walking when you don't understand, you're proving that faith doesn't depend on feelings. You are chosen, and the enemy knows it. He sees your future, even when you can't. He's terrified of the light that's about to break out of your darkness. Don't give up now. You've come too far to quit. The same God who brought you through yesterday's storm will bring you through today's fire. You may feel weak, but his strength is made perfect in weakness. You may feel small, but his power in you is mighty. Every attack you've faced is evidence that heaven has something extraordinary in store for you. If the enemy is fighting you this hard, it's because he knows what's coming next. Your breakthrough, your purpose, your harvest. And when it comes, the same people who doubted you will see that God was with you all along. The chosen ones don't just walk through battles. They come out with blessings. They don't just endure the storm. They emerge with authority. So lift your head high, wipe your tears, straighten your back, and tell your soul, I'm chosen, and that's why I'm under attack. But greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world, because no weapon formed against the chosen will prosper. No lie will outlast the truth of God's word. No storm will silence the voice of faith that's rising within you. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are not defeated. You are chosen. And the reason the enemy keeps attacking you is because he knows that when you finally step into your calling, his kingdom will shake. When you begin to understand that the intensity of your attacks is not random, but divine confirmation, something changes inside of you. You stop asking, why me? And begin to realize that it's happening because of who you are in God's eyes. There's something powerful about recognizing that the battle around you is not about your weakness, but about your worth. You are being fought not because you are failing, but because you are carrying something the enemy desperately wants to destroy. There is an invisible mark upon your life, a divine seal that heaven placed on you, and hell can see it. Every time you rise in faith, that mark shines brighter. Every time you pray instead of panic, every time you worship through your tears, every time you refuse to bow to fear, that mark becomes clearer. And the enemy recognizes that mark because he remembers what happened when others who bore it rose up in power. He remembers David stepping into the valley with a sling and a stone. He remembers Moses standing before the Red Sea with nothing but a staff and faith. He remembers Jesus walking out of the tomb when death thought it had the final word. And when he looks at you, he sees that same divine fire. He knows that inside you is the potential to destroy strongholds, to lift others out of despair, to change your family's story, to shine the light of God in dark places. That's why the intensity of your attacks is so great. It's not proof that you're abandoned. It's proof that you're anointed. You see, the enemy doesn't waste energy on the average. He doesn't fight people who are content to live in compromise, who don't threaten his kingdom. But the moment you decide to live differently, to walk in righteousness, to leave the things that used to bind you, to forgive those who hurt you, to surrender your will to God, that's when hell notices your name. That's when the battle intensifies. That's when the storms begin to rage. Because the enemy knows the moment you discover who you are, you become unstoppable. You become a vessel of authority, someone who doesn't just survive attacks, but grows stronger because of them. And the enemy fears that kind of strength. He fears believers who no longer run from the fire, but walk through it with peace in their eyes. He fears those who learn that resistance is not rejection, that pressure is not punishment. The greater the opposition, the greater the evidence that heaven is involved. When the attacks increase, it's because something inside you is increasing too. The more you grow in faith, the more the enemy tries to shake it. The more you draw near to God, the more the enemy tries to distract you. He will throw confusion, fear, temptation, and discouragement at you, hoping you will interpret the battle as abandonment. He wants you to think that because it's hard. God must have left you. But the truth is the opposite. The reason it's hard is because God is doing something deep within you. Growth happens in tension. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Oil only flows when the olive is crushed. The anointing that changes lives is produced through struggle. And that's why the chosen ones feel attacked from every side. There are moments you'll cry out in exhaustion, wondering why you have to fight so many battles. You'll look at others who seem to have peace and wonder why you can't just live quietly. But what's inside of you won't allow that. You were not born for mediocrity. You were not called to live comfortably while the world stays in darkness. There's a roar inside you that can't be silenced, a light that can't be hidden, a power that can't be denied. And that's why the intensity of your battle feels greater than others. You carry something different. You carry a fire that provokes the enemy. You carry authority that makes darkness tremble. You carry the word of God in your spirit, and that word is dangerous to every lie the devil has built. The enemy's attacks are an attempt to make you forget that truth, to make you doubt what God said, to make you question your worth. But you have to stand firm, even when you don't feel strong, and remind yourself that the very pressure you're feeling is proof of your calling. Every great move of God in history came after an intense battle. Before the resurrection came the crucifixion. Before the crown came the cross. Before the glory came the pain. The greater the purpose, the greater the preparation. And that preparation often looks like warfare. The enemy attacks you because he sees your future more clearly than you sometimes do. He knows that if you stay faithful, if you keep walking through the valley, if you keep believing even when you're bleeding, you'll emerge with a testimony that will break chains for others. That's why he keeps sending waves of trouble. He's trying to drown your faith before it matures. But God has already set a boundary on those waves. They can roar, but they cannot overtake you. They can hit, but they cannot destroy what heaven has built. So when you wake up feeling the weight of attack, when anxiety tries to grip your mind, when people turn against you, when your plans collapse, don't see it as random chaos. Recognize it for what it is, confirmation. The devil fights hardest where he fears the most. He knows what you carry is dangerous to him. That's why he tries to convince you to give up before the promise comes. But the greater the battle, the greater the blessing on the other side. You are being shaped for something eternal. The fire you're facing is refining you into pure gold. The tears you've cried are watering the soil of your destiny. The opposition you feel is proof that heaven's hand is still on your life. You must understand that spiritual attacks are not meant to define you. They are meant to reveal you. They uncover what's real ill inside you. Anyone can worship when life is easy. Anyone can praise when blessings flow. But it's when everything is shaking that your faith speaks loudest. The chosen are known not by how much they possess, but by how much they endure while still believing. That's why God allows the intensity. He's proving to the world and to the enemy that your faith is genuine, that your heart is anchored in something greater than circumstance. The attacks you face are not punishment, they are promotion in disguise. God is enlarging your capacity, teaching you to depend on Him more deeply, preparing you to carry greater glory. Every attack you survive becomes another weapon in your arsenal. Every time you get back up, you send a message to hell that your spirit cannot be broken. Every scar becomes a sign that you've wrestled with darkness and come out stronger. That's why the enemy doesn't know what to do with a believer who refuses to quit. When he throws fire and you still worship, when he whispers fear and you still pray, when he sends confusion and you still believe, that's when you remind him that you are chosen, and that being chosen means being unshakable even in the storm. The intensity of your attack is the proof of your assignment. The pain you feel is proof that you're in motion, that you're breaking ground, that you're advancing in places hell thought were closed. Every attack is a backhanded compliment from the enemy that says, "You are dangerous to me." So instead of seeing the battle as a curse, start seeing it as confirmation. You are under attack because you are chosen, because you are anointed, because you are carrying something that will shift the atmosphere wherever you go. And though the attacks come from every direction, they cannot remove what God has placed inside you, for what God ordains, no force in hell can overturn. The enemy targets the chosen because their destiny threatens his kingdom. He is not after the comfortable, the complacent, or the content. He is after those who have decided to stand for righteousness, who have determined in their hearts to live differently, who refuse to bow to fear or sin. When you are chosen, you carry something eternal inside you, something that has the power to destroy the very structures of darkness. You might not even realize how dangerous you are to the enemy's plans, but he does. He recognizes your potential before you do. He sees that there's greatness inside of you, that there's an anointing that will impact generations, that there's a word from God burning in your heart that will break chains and bring freedom to others. That is why the attacks are relentless, why the warfare seems constant, why you feel like you have a target on your back. Because you do. But that target is not a curse, it's a sign of calling. The devil doesn't waste his energy fighting anyone who isn't a threat. The chosen carry light into dark places, and light always exposes what darkness tries to hide. When you walk into a room full of pain and bring peace, the enemy notices. When you choose forgiveness instead of bitterness, he loses ground. When you keep believing even when your life doesn't make sense, you become a living testimony that God is real, that grace works, that love wins. That's what he's afraid of. He's not afraid of your name, your money, or your strength. He's afraid of your influence. He knows that one person filled with God's Spirit can shift an entire atmosphere, can turn hearts toward hope, can speak life where death once ruled. The enemy's strategy is to silence that voice before it rises. He attacks the chosen early, sometimes even before they know who they are. He sends confusion, pain, rejection, and fear in childhood, in relationships, in careers, hoping to crush their confidence before they realize their authority. But what he doesn't understand is that everything he uses to wound you, God can use to wake you. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every loss becomes material for a testimony. The very pain that was meant to bury you becomes the soil from which your purpose grows. The chosen ones carry stories that cut deep, but those stories become weapons of truth. When you tell how you made it through, when you share how God lifted you out of what should have destroyed you, you rob hell of its power. The enemy fears your story because it proves that even when he attacks, he cannot win. That's why he tries to keep you silent, ashamed, or distracted. He knows that the moment you speak boldly about what God has done, you'll set others free. The chosen threaten the kingdom of darkness because they carry heaven's authority. They walk with a confidence that doesn't come from themselves, but from the presence of God. They don't bow to pressure, they kneel only before their Creator. That kind of boldness disrupts the enemy's agenda. He relies on fear to control people, but when someone chosen stands up unafraid, his tactics lose power. The chosen refuse to be manipulated by lies because they live by truth. And truth is dangerous to deception. Every time you speak truth in love, you shake the foundation of hell. Every time you choose to pray instead of panic, you remind the enemy that his influence is temporary. Every time you keep walking in faith while wounded, you expose how powerless he really is. The enemy's attacks are always strategic. He studies your weaknesses, your patterns, your past, and he tries to twist them into traps. But for the chosen, those traps turn into testimonies. What was meant to destroy becomes a stepping stone to destiny. When you are chosen, even your struggles have purpose. The devil thought that by attacking your mind, he could silence your spirit. But every time he pushes you toward despair, God pulls you deeper into his presence. The pressure builds resilience. The warfare builds wisdom. The pain builds compassion. These are the qualities that make you unstoppable in the spiritual realm. The chosen don't fight like others. They fight from victory, not for it. They already know how the story ends. That's why even when they're bleeding, they keep believing. The reason your destiny threatens the enemy's kingdom is because your life carries impact beyond yourself. You were never meant to walk this path just for your own blessing. You were meant to be a conduit of light for others. The enemy fears generational change. He fears that your obedience will break cycles in your family, that your prayers will protect people you'll never meet, that your faith will ignite revival in places you'll never go. The chosen are dangerous because their influence multiplies. Every seed they plant in tears becomes a forest of faith for someone else. That's why the devil tries to isolate you, to make you feel like you're alone, like you're not making a difference. He hopes to disconnect you from your divine perspective so you forget how powerful your presence really is. But even in isolation, the chosen are effective. Even when no one sees their battles, heaven does. The chosen threaten darkness by simply refusing to quit. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to be persistent. The enemy doesn't know what to do with someone who keeps getting back up. Every time he thinks he's finished you, you rise again. Every time he hits you with disappointment, you lift your eyes and say, "Still, I trust." That kind of faith terrifies him. It's not the loud faith that scares hell. It's the enduring faith, the quiet, unshakable, patient faith that keeps showing up. When you keep walking even when you don't see results, when you keep sowing kindness even when it's not returned, when you keep believing in the middle of the storm, you become a threat that can't be neutralized. The enemy's weapons lose their edge against someone who won't surrender. What he fears most is not your failure, but your revelation. Once you understand who you truly are and what's inside you, his influence begins to crumble. The chosen are dangerous because they carry identity. They know they are loved, they know they are called, and they know they are protected. Once you stop living from insecurity and start living from identity, the enemy's attacks lose their power. You begin to see every trial not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity. You start to recognize the hand of God, even in the middle of chaos. You walk into storms with peace, because you know who controls the wind and the waves. That kind of confidence shifts the atmosphere wherever you go. The chosen threaten the enemy because they bring heaven's order into earth's confusion. They walk into chaos and restore calm. They speak life into situations that seem dead. They love the unlovable, forgive the unforgivable, and hope in the impossible. Every time they do, the darkness shrinks. The kingdom of hell loses territory every time a chosen one chooses grace over anger, faith over fear, truth over compromise. The enemy can't stand that kind of power because it's not human, it's divine. It's the reflection of God himself shining through human weakness. That's why your destiny draws so much fire. The moment you begin to align with what heaven designed you to do, hell mobilizes against you. But that only confirms that you're moving in the right direction. You are carrying something too significant to go unnoticed. You are a vessel of light, and light always provokes darkness to respond. The more you step into your calling, the more resistance you'll face. But that resistance is a compliment. It means you're threatening the enemy's territory. It means your obedience is shaking the gates of hell. It means your destiny carries weight in eternity. Every trial and hardship is training for your greater purpose. The struggles you face are not meaningless, they are preparation. Every tear you have cried, every disappointment you have endured, every door that closed in your face was not there to destroy you, but to develop you. You may not see it now, but every trial has been molding you, shaping you, refining you for something that your current self couldn't yet carry. God allows the heat not to harm you, but to harden your spirit in strength and endurance. Just like a soldier is trained in battle, your trials are the training ground for your destiny. The chosen ones do not become powerful by avoiding pain. They become powerful by enduring it with faith. What you're going through is not random. It is intentional. It is building the kind of character that can sustain the calling that is coming. When you look back over your life, you will see that the moments that seemed to break you were the same moments that built you. It was through rejection that you learned resilience. It was through loss that you learned to depend on God. It was through heartbreak that you learned compassion for others. Every hardship is a classroom, and the teacher is silent during the test, not because he's absent, but because he's watching to see what you've learned. The chosen must be trained differently because their assignment is different. You can't walk in high places with untested faith. You can't lead others if you haven't first learned how to walk through the valley. You can't speak about healing if you've never been wounded. That's why the road feels rougher for you. It's not punishment, it's preparation. The chosen ones face greater storms because they are being equipped for greater responsibility. When God is preparing you for something big, He first strengthens your roots. He allows the winds of adversity to blow so that your faith will be anchored deeper than before. When life shakes, your foundation is revealed. Every trial exposes whether your faith is built on feelings or on truth. And through hardship, your roots grow strong enough to hold the weight of future blessings. God will never give you something that your spirit is too weak to sustain. That's why He allows seasons of stretching. The very things you think are breaking you are actually building capacity inside of you. There's a spiritual gym that every chosen one must pass through. In this gym, the weights are heavy and the workouts are long, but each repetition strengthens the soul. Every disappointment adds endurance, every loss builds focus, every test teaches perseverance. You cannot become mighty in spirit without resistance. Just as muscles only grow when they are torn and rebuilt, faith only grows when it's tested and restored. That's why the chosen ones are often misunderstood. People see their calm, but not their struggle, their strength, but not their scars. They don't realize the cost of the anointing, the hours of prayer in the dark, the tears that watered their strength. It's the hidden training that makes the public victory possible. When you're walking through a hard season, it's easy to wonder where God is. But He is there training you, pruning you, watching you grow stronger even when you don't feel it. The chosen are often tested in private before they are trusted in public. God will put you in seasons where you feel unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, not to hurt you, but to humble and shape you. He knows that if you learn to be faithful in obscurity, you'll stay faithful in influence. That's why He allows you to serve quietly, to love without recognition, to pray without applause. He's training you to live for His approval alone, not for the applause of people. Because once you start living for His glory, no amount of pressure can make you quit. Every hardship has a hidden purpose. Even betrayal becomes a blessing when it drives you to depend on God more deeply. Even loneliness becomes holy when it teaches you to listen to His voice. Even pain becomes sacred when it draws you closer to His heart. The chosen ones are trained through contradiction. They are told they are called to greatness, yet they spend years in struggle. They are told they are anointed, yet they face rejection. They are told they carry light, yet they walk through darkness. But every contradiction is a lesson in faith. It teaches you to believe in what God said, even when what you see doesn't match it. It teaches you to trust His timing when your own understanding fails. This training builds endurance that cannot be learned from comfort. The trials you face are producing spiritual muscles you'll need for your future battles. What you're learning in the storm will be the wisdom you use to help others find peace. The compassion you gain in your own suffering will be the same compassion you extend to others in theirs. Every hardship is equipping you to lead, to love, to lift others higher. The chosen are not just trained for survival, they're trained for service. Their scars become maps for others who are still lost. Their testimonies become anchors of hope for those drowning in despair. That's why the training is so intense, because the chosen are meant to carry more than themselves. They are meant to carry others too. Sometimes the training looks like loss, and you wonder why God allowed certain people to leave your life. But every departure is part of the preparation. He removes what you don't need so you can hold what He's about to give. He closes doors that lead to distraction so you can walk through the ones that lead to destiny. He lets certain relationships fade so your dependence shifts fully to Him. The chosen must walk lightly, unburdened by the things that could slow them down. It's in the letting go that you learn to lean in. It's in the silence that you learn to listen. It's in the struggle that you learn to surrender. There will be moments when you feel like giving up, when the pressure feels unbearable, when the pain feels purposeless. But if you could see what God is building through this, you'd understand why the battle is so fierce. Every test you pass is preparing you for something greater. Every hardship endured is a seed that will bear fruit in due season. What you're learning in the fire will become the fire you carry to ignite others. The chosen are trained to transform suffering into strength, confusion into clarity, weakness into worship. That's why no battle is wasted. When you come out of this training ground, you will carry authority that only experience can produce. You'll walk with a quiet confidence that storms cannot shake because you've already survived what others thought would destroy you. You'll be able to look into someone else's pain and say, I know how it feels, and I know God can bring you through. That's the purpose of training, not to make you proud, but to make you powerful in humility, steady in storms, and unbreakable in faith. Every hardship, every tear, every moment of struggle is shaping you into the vessel God designed you to be. Isolation and rejection are part of God's preparation, not punishment. When God chooses someone for a great purpose, He often separates them before He sends them. He pulls them away from crowds, from comfort, from the noise of approval, because divine preparation requires solitude. It's in the lonely places that your identity becomes rooted not in what people think of you, but in what God says about you. You may wonder why certain friends left, why you suddenly feel unseen, why doors that once opened easily now seem locked tight. It's not rejection, it's redirection. God removes you from environments that cannot sustain your growth. The chosen are not built in applause, they are built in obscurity. In the silence, you learn to hear His whisper. In the absence of people, you learn the presence of God. The very loneliness that hurts you is shaping you into someone who depends on heaven, not human validation. There comes a time in every chosen life when you will walk through a wilderness season. It feels like everyone else is moving forward while you are standing still. The phone stops ringing, the opportunities dry up, the encouragement fades. You begin to question yourself, wondering if you did something wrong. But God allows this season not to punish you, but to purify your motives. He removes external noise so He can refine your internal voice. He wants you to learn to trust His timing, to rest in His process, to know that even when nothing seems to be happening, something is growing in you. The wilderness is not wasted time. It's divine training ground. When you are stripped of comfort, you discover character. When you have no one to lean on, you learn to stand on faith alone. Rejection can be one of the hardest lessons for the chosen to endure because it touches the deepest part of our humanity, the need to belong. We all want to be accepted, understood, included. But when God calls you higher, not everyone can come with you. Some will misunderstand your growth as arrogance, your faith as foolishness, your obedience as rebellion. People will walk away and you will feel the sting of loss. But rejection often reveals direction. Every person who exits your life creates space for what is next. The hands that once held you cannot always carry who you are becoming. God will let certain relationships end because He knows their season is over. If He didn't remove them, their voices might drown out His. Isolation teaches you to be led by conviction rather than crowds. When no one is watching, you find out what truly drives you. You learn to pray not because others expect you to, but because your soul needs it. You learn to worship not because a song is playing, but because you have nothing left but praise. It's in the silence of rejection that God often gives the clearest revelation. He speaks in whispers because he wants you close. When everything around you goes quiet, that's when you start to hear him say, "I'm still here." Those moments transform you. You begin to realize that being alone with God is not loneliness, it's intimacy. You stop fearing isolation because you recognize it as the place where heaven trains warriors. Many of the greatest figures in Scripture were shaped through solitude. Joseph spent years in a prison cell before stepping into the palace. Moses spent 40 years in the desert before leading Israel out of bondage. David was alone in the fields with sheep before facing Goliath. Even Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness before stepping into his ministry. God uses isolation to prepare his chosen ones for impact. He removes the distractions so they can hear clearly, so they can learn obedience, so they can become refined vessels. The rejection you face today may very well be the redirection that leads to your destiny. Sometimes isolation feels like failure. You see others succeeding, celebrating, connecting, while you feel left out. But what you don't see is that God is protecting you from premature exposure. If he allowed you to be seen before you were ready, the weight of attention could crush you. He hides you not to delay you, but to strengthen you. The cocoon is dark, but it's where transformation happens. The butterfly cannot fly without that hidden process. And in the same way, you cannot walk in power without your season of hidden growth. You are not being overlooked. You are being developed. Rejection also exposes what you truly believe about yourself. When people withdraw their approval, when applause stops echoing, you discover whether your confidence was in them or in God. It hurts to be misunderstood, but it also liberates you. Because once you stop depending on people's validation, you become unshakable. The chosen must learn to live free from the addiction of approval. When your peace no longer depends on who accepts you, you become dangerous to the enemy. You walk boldly because your worth is anchored in truth, not opinion. God allows rejection to reroute you toward relationships that align with your purpose. Not everyone who starts with you is meant to finish with you. Some people were only part of your preparation, not your destiny. You will find that as God elevates you, he will also prune you. Pruning looks like loss, but it's actually growth. He cuts off what no longer bears fruit so that you can produce more. The pain of separation leads to the joy of multiplication. When you lose something that no longer serves your purpose, you make room for what does. Isolation also deepens your discernment. When you spend time alone with God, you learn to recognize his voice over all others. You start to see people and situations with spiritual eyes. What once confused you now becomes clear. The quiet strengthens your spirit and sharpens your perspective. You start realizing that not every opportunity is divine. Not every invitation is meant for you. Not every connection is God sent. Solitude teaches you to wait for his yes and to be at peace with his no. That kind of wisdom can only come from time alone with him. The chosen often mistake isolation for abandonment, but it's actually an invitation. God is inviting you into deeper fellowship, into a sacred space where he can reveal who you truly are. He strips away the noise so you can rediscover your name, your purpose, your peace. The isolation that once felt unbearable becomes the foundation of your intimacy with him. When you emerge from it, you carry a strength that doesn't depend on anyone else's presence. You learn to walk with God even when no one walks with you. And when rejection hits, when doors close, when friends fade, remember that what looks like loss is often God's way of removing distractions from your destiny. He is pruning, refining, preparing you for the place he is taking you. What you learn in solitude will sustain you in success. The stillness that feels like silence is actually shaping you for the sound of destiny. The rejection that broke your heart is redirecting you to relationships that will nurture your calling. The isolation that made you weep is drawing you closer to the only one who will never leave you. What the enemy meant for harm, God is using for your strengthening and growth. There are moments in life when you look around and wonder why everything seems to be falling apart, why betrayal, heartbreak, loss, or sickness hit you all at once. It feels as if the enemy has drawn a target on your back, releasing every arrow in his quiver to break you down. But what you do not see in the chaos is that God is still in control, weaving every painful thread into a divine pattern. What the enemy intends for destruction, God transforms into development. The devil wants to weaken you, but God uses the same attack to make you stronger. Every storm that comes against you carries a lesson, a revelation, a strength you didn't know you had until you had to face it. It is often in the battle that your faith muscles grow. Pain presses you, but it also pushes you into the arms of God. When everything is comfortable, faith can remain shallow, but when life shakes you, you begin to dig deeper. God allows adversity not because He delights in your suffering, but because He delights in your growth. Just like gold is purified by fire, your spirit is refined by struggle. The heat exposes the impurities that comfort often hides. Every hardship reveals what truly anchors you. You start to see that real strength is not in avoiding pain, but in standing firm through it. The chosen are not made in palaces, they are made in furnaces. It is in the heat of life's hardest seasons that character is forged, endurance is built, and faith becomes unshakable. What once looked like an attack becomes an assignment for your elevation. Think of Joseph thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, and later imprisoned for a crime he didn't commit. Everything seemed to scream injustice and pain. Yet, through it all, God was positioning him for purpose. The betrayal was painful, but it was also directional. The slavery was dehumanizing, but it placed him in the house where destiny would find him. The prison was confining, but it was the final step before promotion. The enemy's plot to destroy him became God's plan to elevate him. The same brothers who rejected him had to one day bow before the one they sold. The same enemy that tried to bury you will one day have to watch you bloom in the place they thought you'd never survive. There are things God can only teach through trials. You can read about faith, but you don't really understand it until you have to trust Him when everything looks impossible. You can talk about peace, but you don't truly know it until you stand calm in a storm that should have broken you. The enemy's attacks are often the classroom where the chosen learn their deepest lessons. The devil may be the instrument, but God is the conductor. Nothing happens outside of His permission. If He allowed it, it means there is purpose in it. The blow that was meant to destroy you becomes the blessing that defines you. The hardship you cried over becomes the testimony that strengthens others. Every wound you endure in this life can either make you bitter or better. It depends on your perspective. The enemy counts on your bitterness. He wants you to give up, to see yourself as a victim, to turn away from God in frustration. But when you choose to see your pain through the lens of purpose, you rob the enemy of his power. You begin to say, even this will work for my good. That is when the shift happens. The very thing that tried to weaken you starts working in your favor. The betrayal that wounded you becomes the motivation that fuels your mission. The loss that crushed you becomes the compassion that helps you heal others. God does not waste pain. Every tear you shed waters the soil of your next harvest. There is something about struggle that brings hidden strength to the surface. You don't discover what's inside of you until life presses you. The enemy tries to bury you under pressure, but pressure is what produces diamonds. Every trial is proof that you carry something valuable. The greater your calling, the greater the resistance. That's why the chosen face battles others never will. But the more you are attacked, the stronger you become. The same storm that destroys the weak prepares the strong. When the waves crash, your roots grow deeper. When the fire burns, your faith burns brighter. The enemy's attacks are evidence that you are worth fighting against. When you look back on your life, you will realize that some of your greatest growth came from your hardest seasons. Those nights when you thought you couldn't make it became the nights you found your strength. Those moments you thought God was silent were the moments He was shaping you. Growth doesn't always feel good. It often feels like loss. But loss has a way of stripping you of everything temporary so that you can hold on to what's eternal. God uses the pain the enemy caused to teach you how to stand, how to trust, how to endure. Every scar becomes a story, every trial becomes a testimony, every loss becomes a lesson. The enemy wants you to see your struggle as evidence of God's absence, but it is actually evidence of His involvement. He is not distant in your pain. He is deeply present, working behind the scenes. You may not see the full picture now, but one day you will look back and thank Him for what didn't make sense. You will realize that what you called devastation was actually preparation. What you thought would break you was building you. The enemy sent it to end you, but God used it to equip you. He took what was meant for evil and turned it into a platform for his glory. You can't avoid attacks, but you can change how you see them. When the chosen understand that every battle is a step toward destiny, they stop asking, why me? And start saying, use me. They understand that the attacks confirm their assignment. The devil doesn't waste resources on people who pose no threat. If he's after you, it's because you carry something powerful. He's not attacking your past. He's afraid of your future. The same hand that formed you is the hand that fights for you. And that's why no weapon formed against you can prosper. When pain enters your story, don't rush to escape it. Let it teach you. Let it shape you. Let it build endurance and humility and compassion within you. The enemy cannot destroy what God is developing. Every trial is temporary, but what it produces in you is eternal. God uses opposition to teach you authority. He uses heartbreak to teach you healing. He uses loss to teach you love. What the enemy meant to weaken you becomes the very thing that strengthens your spirit and fortifies your faith. You come out of the storm wiser, purer, and more powerful than when you went in. The enemy thought he could bury you, but he didn't realize you were a seed. The more dirt he threw on you, the deeper your roots went. Every attack only positioned you for greater growth. The darkness that covered you was the environment for new life to begin. What was meant to end you became the beginning of something greater. God turns pain into purpose, sorrow into strength, defeat into destiny. You may not have chosen the battle, but you can choose how you rise from it. The very attacks designed to destroy you are the ones God is using to define you, to grow you, and to reveal His glory through you. The chosen are not defeated by battles. They are refined and revealed through them. The storms that come against your life are not sent to destroy you, but to prove what God has already placed within you. Every chosen person walks through seasons that test their endurance, faith, and devotion, because destiny cannot rest on a fragile foundation. The enemy attacks not just to bring pain, but to expose weakness, and God allows those very same battles to transform weakness into strength. The fire that was meant to burn you ends up purifying you. The chosen are never defined by what they go through. They are defined by how they come out of it. Each battle, each heartbreak, each disappointment becomes a mirror revealing who you really are and who God is in you. The chosen understand that victory is not the absence of struggle, but the endurance through it. When you are chosen, you cannot expect an easy road. The hand of God on your life will often draw the attention of opposition. The enemy sees the light on you and throws shadows to dim it. But the darker it gets, the brighter the light shines. Every chosen person in history was shaped through conflict. The oil of anointing is pressed from the olive through crushing. And so it is with the spirit of the chosen. You are pressed so that what's within you can be poured out. It's the crushing that releases the calling. God allows you to walk through valleys not to leave you there, but to strengthen the muscles of faith that can only grow under pressure. The mountaintops may inspire you, but the valleys prepare you. The chosen are refined because purity cannot exist without pressure. Think of metal in the fire. It melts, it bends, it changes form, but what emerges is stronger, purer, more resilient. The heat does not destroy, it reveals what was hidden. That's how God works in your life. The challenges that come against you are the furnace where your destiny is forged. When you endure pain, confusion, and loss yet still choose to trust, that's where your faith becomes real. It's easy to praise God when everything works, but when you worship Him through the fire, that's when heaven recognizes your name. That's when your faith becomes unshakable. The chosen don't run from battles. They rise through them. The enemy often believes that if he can attack you enough, he can silence your spirit. He tries to overwhelm you with fear, discouragement, and weariness. But what he doesn't understand is that the chosen thrive in adversity. The more pressure that comes, the more power God releases. It's through resistance that strength is born. A seed can only break open when it's buried deep in the ground under darkness and weight. That burial is not death, it's transformation. What looks like defeat is often the moment of divine revelation. You cannot be revealed until you've been refined, and refinement comes only through fire. There's a reason God doesn't remove every battle from your path. Without opposition, you would never learn perseverance. Without heartbreak, you would never discover healing. Without struggle, you would never know strength. The chosen carry a depth that can only come from walking through valleys of pain. You learn compassion when you've been wounded, patience when you've been delayed, and faith when you've been tested. These battles are not punishments. They are invitations to grow. Every challenge you face is a chance for God to prove himself faithful again. When God refines you, he removes everything that keeps you small. He strips away pride, fear, doubt, and dependence on others. He lets the fire expose your insecurities so that you can be free from them. It's not comfortable, but it's necessary. The refining process is never easy because it demands surrender. You can't become who you're meant to be while holding on to who you used to be. So, God allows the battles to shake what needs to fall away. He lets certain things burn so that only what's eternal remains. When the smoke clears, you realize you're stronger than you thought, purer than you imagined, and closer to God than you've ever been. The chosen are revealed in battle because the pressure brings out what was hidden all along. A soldier's courage isn't proven in peace but in war. Likewise, your calling isn't confirmed in calm seasons but in storms. When everything around you collapses, what stands firm in you becomes clear. That's how God reveals your true strength, not through comfort but through conflict. Every scar on your life is a reminder that you survived something that should have destroyed you. Those scars become your testimony. They speak of resilience, of endurance, of divine preservation. They remind you that no weapon formed against you has prospered. Sometimes it takes the heat of battle to awaken what's been dormant in your spirit. You may not realize how much faith you have until it's tested. You may not know how much courage you carry until fear surrounds you. The chosen don't pray for easy roads. They pray for strength to walk the hard ones. Because through those hard roads, they are molded into vessels of power and authority. The very thing that was meant to break you becomes the thing that builds you. You learn to stand taller, speak bolder, love deeper, and trust stronger. The refining doesn't take away your humanity. It purifies your spirit so that God's glory can shine through you unhindered. In every battle, there comes a moment when you feel like giving up, when the weight feels unbearable and the path too long. But that's when refinement reaches its deepest work. It's at the breaking point that something shifts inside you. You stop relying on your strength and start relying on His. You begin to see that survival was never the goal. Transformation was. The chosen are not refined so they can boast of endurance, but so they can carry the weight of glory without crumbling. God tests what He trusts. The greater your purpose, the greater your preparation. Every fiery trial you face is proof that God sees something in you that the world needs to see. There is beauty in the battle because it strips you of everything false and leaves you with what's true. The noise fades, and you learn to hear God's still small voice. You stop chasing approval and start seeking alignment. You no longer need recognition because you've found revelation. That's what the fire does. It burns away what's temporary so the eternal can be revealed. The chosen shine brightest after the storm because the storm reveals their source. It's not their strength, their willpower, or their talent. It's their unbreakable connection to the one who called them. And though the battle feels endless at times, every chosen soul learns that refining is a lifelong process. Each new level brings new tests, but also new strength. You begin to see trials differently, not as curses, but as confirmations. You understand that if God allowed this battle, He has already placed victory within it. You stop running from adversity because you've learned that fire doesn't destroy the chosen, it defines them. Every time you rise from the ashes, you rise wiser, stronger, and more radiant. The very battles that were meant to bury you become the stage where your faith is revealed to the world. The chosen do not crumble in battle, they are revealed in it, refined until they reflect the very image of the one who sent them.